Hello. Come on in, friends. Come on in. Today we have new updates for the Summer Wells case. For those of you that don't know or are newer to the channel, I covered the Summer Wells case a lot early on when this channel was first getting started. And I did finally not cover it as often, just with updates like we're doing today. But I do have important updates for you today. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion. So come on in and tell me where you're from. Now, the TBI said that they were in Greenville on November 13th investigating the disappearance of Summer Wells. We have new updates from the TBI. We also have a statement from Summer Wells' parents. They also said that along the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and the FBI, along with Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and the FBI, that they were at the 3500 block of Van Hill Road in Greenville, following up on a lead. So was this a tree trimmer after all? The property located at 3500 of Van Hill Road in Greenville, Tennessee, so it's right on the border of Greenville and Rogersville, which was recently searched in connection with the mysterious disappearance of Summer Wells, is registered to Paul Hill. And let me just show you the receipts on that. Now, this doesn't mean that Paul Hill had anything to do with Summer's disappearance. I just do want to make that really, really clear. But I do want to show you the receipts. Oh, okay. So this is the property that, all right, hopefully I kind of hope I'm there. Okay, so this is a property that was searched, and I'm not going to zero in on it because I don't want to disturb somebody who was there. I don't know why that property was searched, but we're going to talk about it. So Paul Hill has two grown sons, and one of the two brothers owns a tree trimming business. And you will recall that the Wells, Don Wells and Candus Bly Wells, had their trees trimmed around the property that summer. I'm sorry, in the days leading up to Summer's mysterious disappearance. Now, at the time, law enforcement said they did investigate all of the tree trimmers, but according to local property records, Paul Hill purchased this 27-acre Van Hill property back in 1994, and it's situated on the county line between Hawkins County and Greene County. Now, journalist, let's go to her next. We're going to be hopping around here together. Let me put that in. We're going to be hopping around here a little bit. Okay, so this journalist. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble adding this to the stage. Let's try again. There it goes. Okay. All right, we got it. So this is a journalist who's been on the case that's local. She's with WCYB's post. She said this was yesterday. The TBI continues to investigate the disappearance of Summer Wells, who went missing from her Hawkins County home in June of 2021. Despite extensive searches, the Amber Alert for Summer is still active. November 13th, the investigators with the TBI followed up on a lead in the 3500 block of Van Hill Road, about 9.8 miles from Summer's family home on Ben Hill Road. We went by there today, and neighbors tell me they saw agents at 3537 Van Hill Road. I heard there was 15, 20 cars of law enforcement pulling up to this property. So let's continue on with WCYB's journalist, Kristin Quan's post. She says, according to the Tennessee property records, the property is on the Hawkins County Greene County line and is registered to Paul Hill. Now, Paul Hill has two sons, and one of his sons is a tree trimmer. Covering 27 acres and purchased in 1994. Authorities continue to ask anyone with information to contact the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. Reminder, nobody, including authorities, have named anybody as a suspect. So I think she did a really nice, responsible job on that. Let's continue on together. So we learned from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, let me put this one in, that the agents, they did send detectives, you guys. And this is the Rogersville Review is my sourcing on this. So they did send detectives, and this is what summer would look like today. They've age enhanced her. So 4.5 years after this child disappeared from her home on June 15th of 2021, new information surfaced, and it was revealed by the TBI, and detectives were at the location of the 3500 block of Van Hill Road in Greenville on Thursday, November 13th, to follow up on a lead in the case. And a spokesperson for the TBI confirmed their presence on Wednesday. This is Leslie Earhart. She's been on this case from the beginning. I have talked with her on Twitter in the past, asked her questions. She's always been very responsive. Quote, she says, quote, the TBI agents working alongside the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and the FBI continue to investigate the circumstances leading to the disappearance of Summer Wells. This is Leslie Earhart she's a TBI public affairs officer for East Tennessee. And this is what she said in an emailed statement to the Rogersville Review. She says the investigation remains active and ongoing. When asked what information led investigators to the Van Hill Road address about 9.5 miles away from where Summer disappeared, Leslie said that she could not provide further details. Now, Summer Wells was 5 years old at the time she was reported missing from her Ben Hill Road property in Hawkins County, Tennessee, June 15th of 2021, according to an account given by her mother, Candus Bly Wells, to the Rogersville Review at the time. Now, the Wells said that Summer disappeared during a maybe 2 to 5 minute period in which Candus was helping her mother, that's Grandus, who lived nearby and who Summer was reportedly helped plant flowers. Law enforcement officials at the time we're seeking this. We're going to talk about this Toyota Tacoma, a late model red 1998 to 2000 era Toyota Tacoma truck seen in the area that evening. But if it was ever found, nobody has ever said. So an Amber Alert was issued and remains in effect. Now, Candace and Dawn did issue a statement on social media. They said they didn't want to be interviewed, but they did issue a statement. They said, quote, we are waiting for a statement from the TBI. Otherwise, it would just be more drama and stirred pain. So there's nothing to say. But they did say this. Thank you to law enforcement's continued work to solve Summer's case. Okay, so let's talk about this truck. Let's talk about this Tacoma, because I do think that this is significant. So when asked why did investigators go to this Van Hill Road, not to be confused with Ben Hill Road, but Van Hill Road, Leslie Earhart, the spokesperson, said that the investigation, she didn't want to say why they went there. She just said that the investigation was ongoing. So we're like, okay, that's great, but it doesn't really give us any more answers. But let's continue on, because we're going to be hopping around some today while we get this all sorted out. I just want to show you guys all the receipts that I have so far. So the TBI, this is what she would look like. On the right is what she looked like when she disappeared. And on the left is what she would look like today, according to the most recent rendering. And they just really did not provide much information at all. I, kind of wish they had given us some more information on this. Let me go ahead and grab this now. So I want to go over. So if you guys will recall that Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, in my opinion, he's retiring now, but in my opinion, Ronnie Lawson had a conflict of interest at the time that he was investigating Summerwells, and maybe he was just distracted. Maybe it wasn't a conflict of interest, but his son Brandon was convicted. He's a convicted SO, and he got off with a sweetheart deal. This happens, then this all went down around the same time that Summer disappeared. And I just want to be clear, I'm not saying his son had anything to do with it, but I don't think that Sheriff Ronnie Lawson maybe had his eye on the ball at that time with everything going on with his son. I think that he may have been distracted. So let's talk about an update, and what may have gotten all of this started is a post from private investigator Jason Jensen. So I want to talk about that. Let me grab this. So let's look at that and this truck. All right. So this is the truck. And this is Jason's post. Now, he posted this November 19th, and he said, remember the sighting of the red Tacoma? Was this the correct vehicle? Remember, Candace talked about, she said, was asking whoever had that vehicle to please come forward. The owner of this vehicle sold his Tacoma in August of 2022. So they sold it. Summer went missing in June of 2021. And Kimberly says that would mean, because remember, the car was described with a ladder rack. She said that would mean the ladder rack and bucket description was false. But I don't think so. I think it would be very easy to take a ladder rack off of a car, off of a vehicle like this. So a lot of people feel like that, Jason Jensen is the one that kind of got the ball rolling on this. And let's just look at what else he posted around the same time. So he talks about this. And he's got the comments from that. And he posts this as kind of cryptic. He said, if you knew this was going to be your last day, who would you be with? What would you be doing? What would you get anything off your trust? Maybe your answer has a reward. You could spend it now instead of waiting until it's too late. And he asked people to call him anonymously. I think that's very interesting, very cryptic there. But I want to go back to Summer. He's covering a bunch of different cases. But I just wonder if this red Tacoma, is a huge part of it. This is Jason right here. Okay, so get this. The property is owned by an elderly gentleman, but he has two sons that are brothers, right? And this property that they went to is about 15 minutes away from where Summer disappeared from. So we've always wondered, was this somebody in her direct periphery? Could this have been somebody in her periphery? And the tree trimmers, which law enforcement, Sheriff Ronnie Lawson said he ruled them out. Now, this guy owns a tree trimming company that's different than the one that was trimming the trees on the Wells property at the time. It doesn't mean he couldn't have been subcontracted with them, though, and been on the property trimming trees and caught sight of Summer. So the property is owned. It's located near where Don Wells got his DUI, and one of these brothers, the sons of the owner, it just so happens, it happens to be a tree trimmer. So this tree trimmer and this brother owns a different company, but again, that doesn't mean he didn't subcontract himself out to work for somebody else. It doesn't mean he couldn't have picked up a side gig and trimmed trees for someone else. Or it could just be a complete coincidence that there were tree trimmers on the property in the days leading up to her disappearance, and him being a tree trimmer could just be a coincidence. But you will recall that Candus Bly was asking about this red pickup truck when she was giving her initial interview, wanting someone to come and say who they are. Please let me know who you are. And then we go to PI Jensen's page, and you can see he's been talking about this red Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. So neighbors reported seeing the TBI and the FBI and a lot of cars, a lot of police cars. I am going to check in with Chad. I just want to give you guys a lot of this information. So I do believe that they're following up with what the FBI and the TBI, the fact that they were there. This tells me the fact that we have TBI, FBI, and local law enforcement all there tells me that they're following up with what they believe is credible information on the mysterious disappearance of Summer. So was this a tip submitted by the man up on your screen right now, private investigator Jason Jensen? He's been working on the Summerwells case the whole time. And if we go back to the TBI post about the Toyota truck, remember they said that an individual who travels through the area regularly as part of his job stated that he recalled seeing a 1998 to 2000 maroon or red Toyota Tacoma with a full bed ladder rack, and that the individual stated that the truck might have been in the area of the Beach Creek Road or Ben Hill Road in the late afternoon to early evening on Monday, June 14th or Tuesday, June 15th, and that the vehicle was not captured on surveillance cameras. Now remember, Summer disappeared on June 15th, 2021 from inside her home on Ben Hill Road. And so it appears that the red Toyota Tacoma may be connected to the address that was listed on the Ben Hill Road, about 15 minutes down the road from where Summer was living with her family. So, if you look at this post from Jason Jensen, let's go back to the top, and you look at this truck, it doesn't have the ladder rack on it. I think we can, all agree it doesn't have a ladder rack on it. But it would be that would be an easy thing to take off, right? And the car's since been sold. But even if you knew somebody was on the lookout for a red Tacoma truck and you owned one, the simplest thing, and they were looking for one with a ladder rack, the simplest thing would be to simply take the ladder rack off your truck. So the tree trimmers were trimming around the area of the Summerwells property. One of these brothers just happens to be a tree trimmer, and there's a red pickup truck that's attached to someone living at this Van Hill property. And so, in my opinion, things are starting to line up and are starting to make sense. So I'm urging caution regarding anyone who's living at the Van Hill Road property. I don't know why they, searched that property, the FBI, the TBI. It could be following up on a tip called in about the red truck, and they didn't find anything because no one's been arrested. But they did send 15 to 20 cars were sent to that property. So to me, it was something significant that they thought they had. But I want to just, urge caution because no one's been indicted, no one's been arrested, and I will continue to update you guys on this case. But I just do want to, put up this picture of the truck and just let me check in with chat. So come on, if you're watching, come on up and talk to me. So my understanding, I saw a couple of questions. If you guys think that the tree trimmer is the key, the tree trimmers being on the property is the key, put a 1 in the chat. If you think that it's not related and it's just a red herring, put a 2 in the chat. Please follow Reporter Room on Reddit. Yeah, I have a Reddit group if you guys want to be part of it. Cabling says, thank you for modding today. And Jazz is our head mod, and Cabling is modding. As many kids as these two parents have, I find it hard to believe that anyone else is involved. I understand. And they're not great parents. So I don't think, but two things can be true at once, right? And Jess says, please, everyone, thank you for being here. Grab a snack, put your feet up, enjoy the live, hit the thumbs up on your way in. So, and this is our other head mod, Michael. So these are our two head mods. Veronica said, I saw that question. I'm not sure if it was the tree trimmer or not. So two things can be true at once, right? they could be awful parents that weren't watching her. And there could have been somebody with nefarious purposes, a tree trimmer that was on the property that day that caught a look at her and decided they were going to take her. 1, 1, and Justice 2, 1, 2, 1, 1. So we're kind of divided on this one. 2, 2, 2. And Ogad Logad says, wonder if they'll get cadaver dogs out in the area. I don't know. And TN Twister says, in my opinion, it was an accident and a cover up. That was a lot of people's theories at the time, but I do think the fact that they went to this property, neighbors report seeing between 15 and 20 police vehicles in that kind of force with that kind of presence, to me says they thought they have something, or they think they have something. Jessica said, I think it's hard to rule it out since Fred was the neighbor. That's Fred Hill, and was supposedly, yeah, let's not put that in. I can't put that on. Use the word medication. Just redo your comment, Jessica, so I can share it. Just change it to medication, please. Just please watch your words in the top chat. Just put medication. And just please watch, because I don't want to have any problems. I really respect this platform. In my opinion, it was an accident. Thank you, Njaz. I just side-eyed Fred. Well, Fred, okay, so Fred Hill is the owner of the property, but he has two sons, and one of the sons is the tree trimmer, but we don't know who they were out for, or who, it could be somebody else was driving the car that day too. So we don't know yet. So that's why I'm urging caution. Cabling said they had 15 dogs and her basement bedroom was not accessible. Her mom seen her 5 minutes prior. Something happened at the fishing hole. Could be. Paul Hill. That's the tree trimmer, right? I just hope I haven't said anything wrong. No, you're fine. No worries. No worries, Jessica. I'm just, no, it's okay. I want to be respectful of this platform. Dixon says, I agree. The show of force indicates they're taking the tip that led them there very seriously. I agree with you, Dixon. And I do want to welcome Brittany for becoming a brand new Reporter Room member. Welcome, Brittany, to the Reporter Room, Katie. Thank you so much for being a channel member. And thank you, Michael, for the $1.99 super sticker. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Njaz, for gifting a Reporter Room membership. Wow. Thank you so much, Njaz. It's so nice of membership. Please make sure you say thank you to Njaz. And I'm going to put everything toward the computer. And thank you to Njaz for gifting 5 Reporter Room memberships. Wow. Thank you, Njaz. Wow. So if you're watching, come on up and talk to me. People always ask me, how do you get a gifted membership? You need to be in the top chat. You need to be in the top chat. So Uga Luga says, Candace shows true remorse, possibly cover up of an accident. Paul is the owner with 2 sons. Yeah. Now he's elderly. So so you're talking about the owner of the Van Hill property is Paul. So he's elderly, right? Bridget says, in my opinion, so I don't know, in my opinion, the parents had something to do with it. What I'm going to say is let's keep our minds open for new information. I know this case, we've been on it for a while, and I am not here to be an apologist for Don and Candace. They lost custody of their other 3 boys because of what they were doing. There was a CPS case open into summer at the time of her disappearance. But I just do want to keep our minds open to new information that 2 things can be true at once. They could be absolutely, not great parents, and could have also not had anything to do with Summer's disappearance. They really could have had somebody that they were affiliated with. The problem is that, yes, and 2 sons live on that property as well. Yeah, 2 adult sons live on that property. Just made, you're right. So two things can be true at once. They weren't, could have not been watching her. I don't believe Candace's story. I've never believed Candace's story that she was watching, she was suddenly a helicopter parent, because I believe that, Summer was swimming in that water hole unattended at times while she went off with Hunter. But I do think that two things could be true at once. Candace and Dawn could be awful parents and surrounded themselves with horrible people that were involved with nefarious medication use, illegal, right? And that somebody would have seen her, or that somebody would have seen her, and yeah, and Jess does rock. You're right. And if you have any information or tips, you can email me at tipsforjessica, the number 4, at outlook.com. That's tipsforjessica at outlook.com if you want to email me about this. So two things can be true at once. Do I suddenly think that Dawn and Candace are, parents that were like watching her like a hawk and she just disappeared? No. But two things could be true at once. And it could be back to this truck. They could have not have been great parents to their boys and not have great parents to Summer. And still, because of the people they were surrounding themselves with, because of the people that they were spending their time with, still had somebody nefarious that, crept up onto the property that maybe Summer knew. And Shelley says, I've been here cooking, but hands in the water. Inga said, that many dogs. Well, that was like the plot hole in the story, right? How do you have a property? For those of you that are wondering, what is she talking about? Let me just pull this up. Let me just pull this up. Let me just pull up some of why people are like, there is a plot hole. But if this was somebody that they let onto their property, if this was somebody that was on their property regularly, right? That they were letting onto their property, then how do we know? Let me see something. Let me pull this up. Okay. Okay, so I do want to show, this is my own video. Let me see. I'm not going to play the video, but I just do want to show the living conditions that they had somewhere in. Because it is really, really sad. The first time I saw this, I cried. It was just so sad. And I know a lot of you guys did too. So I'm not saying they're suddenly, great parents, but this is, this was Summer's room. And this was her mattress. And you can see the stains on the mattress. Don Wells is a convicted felon. These are all true things that are true. Don did taunt Candace. He said, I have 7 alibis and Candace ain't got none. She's going down. There's the baby. But this does really bother me, this mattress. This is what they had her on. This is what they had her on. So two things can be true at once. They could have, been around, not great people and not had her in good conditions and not been taking great care of her, but could have been somebody else that was, that was looking for her, that came on the property because they wanted to. And this is like, I guess he's a relation to Jody Sue Brown's ex, this person. But I do think that this is significant, that mattress. And this is the doorway that Summer was supposed to have disappeared out of. This was the doorway into her bedroom, this sort of dungeon like room. And this is her parents. But she was in like this kind of dungeon like room. Okay. This is the I'll just play the video. So this is, let me just play it. Don't please, I'm sorry about the music. Just gonna say that I was new and I had not learned how to balance music with sound yet very well. So the music's a little loud. I do apologize for that. I'll can't undo it. But this is the photos that Dr. Phil did not show you. And I don't do that anymore. I am sorry about the music, you guys. It is not balanced out. Okay. So I just want to say sorry about that. Let me see if I can turn down the volume a little bit. Okay. And this is part of why people were so suspicious of them, right? So she's related to the guy that they just sent all the police to through not it's a like related through her ex-husband, her not so not familial, but she was married to her former partner is related to him. So did somebody grab her? Is that the scream? So this was the door to Summer's basement. For those of you that know, Jose said that there was a couch up against the door, but that this door was broken. So it was known that this door was broken. Okay. So Summer could have gotten out, or somebody could have let themselves in. And Candace was over here helping Grandus, according to Candace. This is Grandus's trailer over here. And you can see there's a dog. There were multiple dogs on the property. They like lived in this little hole. They had babies, but there were multiple dogs. So that's why I thought it'd be worth looking at this. So this is how they were living. It looks like an episode of Hoarders. There's just stuff everywhere. You know, toilet paper, just clothes, just stuff everywhere. So that was the video. We'll just put Candace up there. Um, and sorry, so sorry about the music. I know I was new to YouTube, and um just wasn't balancing the music very well. Wasn't balancing the sound. Yeah, he's elderly now. So Gingo wants to know with how many dogs, and that is a plot hole in the story, isn't it? How did somebody get on the property? But if it was somebody known to them, if it was somebody that was coming by to deliver things to them, watching my words, then maybe he would have had access. Hey, ya mama. Jessica said, as the neighbor is supposed a pharmacist, I believe, and Jessica's got that in quotes. I think it's plausible since the property they raided is related to the neighbor Fred, who stated they had people in and out of there all the time. I think your theory makes a lot of sense. Dandy Lioness says, I'm neutral on this, but hopefully she's going to be found regardless of the outcome. That's what we all want. Dixon said, yes, they were neglectful and hence put their children at risk of predators, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. I think I agree with you, Dixon. I think two things can be true. I think that they could, not be great, not be great parents, and that they could also not have had anything to do with her disappearance. I do want to say thank you to NJAS for being for the oh my gosh for the $20 super sticker. That's so kind of you. Thank you, NJAS. I'm putting that toward the new computer. And welcome Mary Ann Simpson who just became a Reporter Room channel member. Welcome to the Reporter Room family. I'm so glad you are here with us. So welcome. And for those of you that are channel members, we do have a separate group on Facebook for channel members. If you type in Reporter Room and channel members, it should pop up for you. Kay Blink says Don and Candace were negligent on the others, would not be in foster care. Yeah, I agree. Michelle says she can't comment. She doesn't know enough yet. That's okay. Beautiful Life says, I believe something happened at the swimming hole. In my opinion, I believe Hunter knows more than what he said. I think Hunter has come out since then and shared what he knows. I think Candace, this is what I think happened at the swimming hole. Hey, Purple Angel, good to see you. Thank you for modding today. I think what happened at the swimming hole is relevant. I think that Candace went there, and I don't think she was watching Summer. I don't think she was the helicopter mom that she portrayed herself to be. But again, two things could be true at the same time, right? Candace could not be, the perfect mother. And I'm saying it as nicely as I can. But somebody else could have still snuck on the property, because who were they hanging out with? Who were they affiliating themselves with? So two things could be true at once, in my opinion. Did you see Chris McDonough's video touring inside with Candace? Yeah, I did. I saw him, the interview that he did. Thanks, Michael. Thank you to our mods today. You guys are so awesome. Thank you. Hey, Jane. Inga says children don't get abducted at home by strangers. Yeah, so I think that the fact that it was such a rural, remote area tells me that, kind of similar to the Lily and Jack Sullivan case, and the fact that we have a grandmother living in a mobile home or trailer, whatever you want to call it, a camper type of situation on the property. It was a rural area. Now, Candace and Dawn had all of these dogs, all these stray dogs. So there, at times there was up to 15, 20 dogs on the property. And Jose said, the dogs, there was a lot of dogs. So the mattress says everything, doesn't it? That's when I saw that, I was like, it was dark and damp. Yeah, that basement was awful. I knew that they didn't have a lot, but I had no idea it was that bad. And, when Chris McDonough went downstairs, and he was scared to go down the stairs. He's told us since then that when he went down the stairs following Candace, that he was scared to go down there. He didn't know if Don Wells was down there. He was worried Don Wells was down there. Missing says Summer Wells from Rogersville, Tennessee. The Wells reported their 5-year-old missing at 6:30 p.m. on June 15th of 2021. She was last seen in a pink shirt, gray shorts. Call 1-800-TBI fine. Thank you, Justice Jane. Yeah, very sad. DNA. Thank you for the thumbs up. Kayla said no child would want to play in that room. But she did try to fix it up, and I think that had she had it the other way the whole time, it would have been okay. But, I don't think she did have it the other way the whole time. I think that she did have, she did have it set up kind of awful. I mean, they didn't try to make it nice for Summer. And you can not have money and be poor. But the thing is, I think a lot of their money was being used for other things. We had heard from Jose, who came out and shared that, and this was really, heartbreaking to hear too, that the kids didn't always have enough food. And if you look at the pictures of Summer, the closer that we got to the time of her disappearance, she does look very, very thin and gaunt compared to when, the year before. It just seems like things were in a lot better place and things did spiral. And then Jess is saying, please give this a thumbs up. It does. It makes all the difference in this. Can you hear me now? No audio for the video I just played? That's probably a blessing. No sound on the video. Oh my gosh. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me now? Just a yes or no. I don't want to keep talking into the microphone if you can't hear me now. Can you hear me now? Hello? Yes? We couldn't hear the music. That's probably a blessing, Jen. That's fine. I'm actually happy you couldn't hear it. Okay, I'm just making sure. Okay, that's probably good, because the balance of the music was so bad, you guys, when I look back at my early videos. But I leave them up there because, then you can see that I have, I've come a long way. Shelley said, "You can still have a clean, orderly house when you're poor." Right. Yeah, she does look undernourished. I agree. All right, so you couldn't hear the sound that I think okay, and then but you can hear me. Okay, that's good. We could hear you fine, just no music. Okay, that's probably good. That's probably good that you couldn't hear the music was like it was like a lot. I don't know. It was a lot. So maybe that was a blessing. Maybe that was like the universe saying, "Don't subject your subscribers to this noise," because it was a lot. It was just a lot. And this is Dawn and Candace on the Dr. Phil show. We'll put Dawn up for a few minutes. I don't want to just single out Candace. So, and Jazz is a beautiful soul. Blessings. That is from Ramona. Yeah, Mama says there's so many characters in this game. Yeah, that's the whole thing. The same names keep popping up. It's kind of a circus. Well, the problem is there's so many characters, and then there's, people with, not the best reputations. Don Wells is a convicted felon. He had a DUI, and I think that like messed up his parole, and he ended up in jail, during all of this. So, but two things could be true at once. They could not be great people, surround themselves with horrible people. Summer Wells, of course, was innocent in all of this. I just want to make that clear. And they could still have had their daughter abducted by somebody else. So I just want to just say, let's keep our mind open for new information. Let's keep our mind open for new information. I do want to thank our executive producer and Jazz. I'm not done. I just wanted to say thank you before we got to the end at our head mod. And thank you so much to our producers, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael L. Cole, Christy Ballantyne, and Randall Rand. And thank you to our channel members. So for those of you that would like to become a channel member, you can hit the join button. It's next to the subscribe button. Subscribing is free and it helps me out a lot. And the join button also helps me out too. So I think two things can be true at the same time. I think that Dawn and Candace could not be great parents, but I think that it's also possible that somebody else in their periphery, because I don't think they were hanging out with the most savory characters, could have been familiar with Summer, may have known that back door wasn't always kept locked, right? Could have known that the back door wasn't kept locked and could have lured her out through the back door or gone in. And the dogs didn't bark because they knew this person. I want to say thank you to NJazz, Kami, Flojo TV, Michael L. Cole, and Bet Ken for the last live stream that we did. And thank you for the gifted channel memberships, NJazz and NJazz. Yeah, so two things can be true. It doesn't have to be an either or. But if you're watching, come on up and talk to me. I do want to talk to chat. Ramona says they were not truthful for the story. Well, I think Candace, with her depiction of what happened at the watering hole was just very weird. She wouldn't get on camera for 3 weeks and advocate for her missing daughter. Now, again, this could be related to, medications. But I don't think do I think she was watching Summer like a helicopter and on that day, even though she, allegedly didn't watch her when they were at the watering hole, swimming. And look at this dank, awful watering hole that they were swimming at. Trying to see if I have a picture of it that I could just grab really quick. And this bothered a lot of people too. This did. So that could, but multiple things could be true at the same time. I'm trying to see if I have a picture of the watering hole. I thought, yeah, there it is. Okay. So this is where she was swimming. Now, there was a perfectly nice lake area where you could swim, but that's not where she took her. She took her to this dank, nasty, dirty watering hole that was, for the horses near the horse barn. And she, allegedly, Grandus stayed in the car. And, according to Hunter, they went up the path. Now, Candace tried to put down Hunter, saying that, Hunter threw up gang signs and went down the path by himself. But I'm not so sure that that's true. I think that, Candus, and it was with Hunter, she was buying him alcohol laced iced tea, and he was, just a kid, same age as Celeste at the time. He was just a kid. Jessica said, I followed this case since the beginning. I thought for sure it was them. I thought it was all a lie. Now I believe someone did come up there. They were not watching the kids. Just May said, I feel like Candace nodded off whenever that happened. I wonder too, like when they got home, they got, unloaded the groceries, but there's no mention of Summer. But I think, I don't think she was like doing this helicopter thing where she was just helping her mom for a minute, took her eyes off Candace. Maybe she was. I don't think so. And I don't think that helped her to try when she tries, keeps her house the way that she kept it. And Dawn too, keeping the house the way that they kept it, making the choices that they made to keep it that way. And then trying to say that she was some kind of a helicopter mom. And then they kind of tried to blame the boys, saying that the boys were supposed to be watching her, which is just really heartbreaking for the boys. And just wants to thank everybody for being here this evening. Thank you, everybody. Just made April give you a heart and Jazz. Teresa says, and don't forget, Candace was supposed to have left for a little bit and come right back. Who says she didn't drive Summer that 9? It's like, I think it was 9.5 miles. So 14 minutes, 15 minutes down the road. Well, some people have wondered about that too. Ramona says, has Texas Equisearch been out there since this case? They were out there multiple times but not lately. Just Made says, I thought they were guilty too. They were there in the beginning. Yeah, the Texas Equisearch was there in the beginning. It was a horrible place to have children living in. Yeah, you can be poor and still keep it nice, Teresa said, also the church lady and her husband had a truck just like that in the same color. Well, I think that was the blue vehicle that I was showing in this one. Let me see. I think it was the blue car that they had, but I could be wrong. But they didn't, that's not where they went. They went to the Van Hill property, not the church lady. So I think that's interesting. Whoop. Brittany says, wow, I remember this case at the beginning. I wasn't aware it was back in the media. New information. Yeah. If you just are joining me, back it up and to it. Equisearch is out there. Yeah, they came out multiple times early on, but not in the last year. I haven't heard of them being out there in the last year. I've always tried to stay up on the case because I promised you guys, and a promise is a promise. I promised you if there was anything new, what I didn't want to cover. And what was starting to happen is we were just getting to the point kind of where we got in the Sebastian Rogers, where we were just covering drama on the parents. And I didn't want to cover the drama on the parents. That doesn't help find anybody. So I ultimately just decided to just, do updates as we had them. And I've done a couple of updates during the Sebastian Rogers case. I gave a couple of updates on Summer, but I just wanted to do updates on Summer, as we had it. But this was so huge. I definitely thought it was, time to do an update, and I will continue to follow this. So I will add this on for another live stream in a couple of days with just updates, because I do expect to hear more, because they were down there with 15, 20 police cars with the FBI and the TBI and local law enforcement. So there was something specific they were trying to get, or maybe got, and we just haven't heard about it yet. Empty and clean is better. Yeah, and they did ultimately, I just wanted to be fair, they did clean up the property. Since then, they did try to fix it up. I don't know what it looks like now, but they did try. Thank you, Texas Life. She will always be remembered. Yeah. They have not found her. No, I wish they did. If you want to back up with all the breaking news, Brittany, it's definitely worth listening to. There is a lot of important updates on the case, including this police visit, 14, 15 minutes away. And this would make a lot of sense that it could be somebody in their periphery that knew they weren't watching her, that knew this back door. I mean, Jose lived on the property, but he told us this back door had a couch against it. It didn't lock. So the idea that she was just down in the basement playing perfectly safe and couldn't have gotten out No, she definitely, somebody could have gone to the window and, looked in, and she would have known this person if they were, making medication deliveries to her parents. She would have known them and would have maybe opened the door. And maybe even, but Jody Sue never retracted the idea that she heard that scream. So I'm just wondering if that was her being removed from the property. Just Mate said, I will try to be compassionate. I'd rather be wrong for that instead of tearing down an innocent. Yeah, I think I would just say, let's keep our minds open to new information. Yeah, there's a lot of predators out there. They're just, you guys, they're everywhere. If you put in like SO into your search history around your own house, you will be shocked at how many are living right around you. If you haven't and it does help me out with the algorithm. It lets YouTube know I'm doing a credible job. And for those of you that were looking for the Chad Daybell case and Lori Vallow Daybell, I was going to do an update on that one, but this caught my heart. As soon as I saw this case got an update, I was like, you know what? This is like, I've been on, I was so emotionally invested in this case. And I know you guys were too. And I always did, and I did promise I didn't want to do updates on the parents anymore, the drama with the parents, which is kind of what we were left with at the end when I stopped covering it. But I absolutely will cover any TBI, FBI, Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, anything like that. Absolutely will. Debbie says she could have been down on the road. Yeah. Wouldn't it be something if it was somebody in their periphery that knew Summer and was aware of her, or maybe caught sight of her while he was trimming trees and came up onto their property, and maybe Candus was asleep and got her. And that's where Sue heard the scream. Maybe Summer screamed when he tried to put her in the truck. No one protected her. You're right about that. We might not even notice them, but they would notice our kids, though. Wasn't she taken from the yard? Well, they say, Candace and Dawn say that she was taken from inside the house. Thank you, Purple Angel. Your mama said, I think there are more child abductions than we think. Also, I think predators take advantage of the neglectful type of parents because they're easier to abduct. Yeah. Yeah. And these parents they do fall into that category. They lost custody of the 3 boys not long after. They said it was because that CPS was afraid because Summer had been abducted, but CPS doesn't take your kids away when you have one child abducted. It was because of the treatment that was going on and the conditions that they were living in, right? And so, this does kind of hearken. This is why there's been so many comparisons to the Lily and Jack case, the way that, the yard was kept, the fact that, there was a grandmother living in a camper on the property. Now, Lily and Jack were living with their parents and their little sister Meadow in a mobile home, not a regular house like Summer was living in. But the conditions, I never saw the inside of the mobile home, but I guess they weren't good because, I've heard rumors, allegedly Malaya took Meadow and to her parents' house so she would be able to retain custody of Meadow. Thank you, Michelle. Brittany said, yeah, they know who to pick. And Purple Angel said, Texas Life Julie said, it only takes a minute for someone to take a child. Keep your babies close. Yeah, they do need to be supervised. It is weird because of the dog. So again, but if it was someone that came on the property regularly and knew the dogs were familiar with this person, maybe. Thank you, Kate Bling. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there. Please consider joining me for the next one. I'm going to do updates again on this case in a couple of days. I'm going to do more updates on the D4VD. And if you haven't subscribed, so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. And I will see you in a day or two. Bye. Thanks.